Hey everyone, I hope you're all well. Now, long-time viewers of my channel will know that I am an advocate for video game preservation. Now, in order to try and use all of my physical discs less, what I've been trying to do is trying to back them up on their respective consoles. Now, recently I've done that with my PS1 and PS2 games, and in the past I've done them for my Wii and GameCube games as well. But the problem with that last one is, the GameCube games, well, they're all backed up on my Wii. Now, yes, my Wii does have a HDMI adapter on it. The picture quality is comparable to component cables, but it doesn't come close to what I've got in my GameCube. Now, since my GameCube is using the HDMI adapter using the digital output port, I want to be playing backup games on that instead. But with no USB port for an external hard drive, how am I going to do this without hard modding the console? Well, hello fellow gamers, and this simple little board is what made it possible. So yeah, I think an introduction is in order. This is the SD2SP2. Yep, that's its name. But for a very good reason. You see, it's a small PCB with a micro SD card slot, and it's designed to fit into the GameCube's otherwise unused second serial port. So, hence the name, SD2SP2. Simple, right? Now, since it takes up the otherwise unused second serial port underneath the GameCube, you're free to just keep other add-ons installed, like the broadband adapter or the Game Boy player. But you are going to need the original model of GameCube in order to do this, because the second model of the GameCube doesn't have that second serial port. Now, the SD2SP2, it started showing up in 2019 as a sort of self-assembly board. But you know, as time has gone on, they are now very easily available online, already assembled, and for pretty darn cheap too. The only thing that I needed in order to get this set up was put in an SD card, and away we go. I already had a spare 128 gig card, so I popped that in there. I thought that'd be a good choice because GameCube games, they tend to be around about 1.5 gigabytes each, and to back up all of my collection would take up roughly half of this card. So there's plenty of space for any new games I get in the future. Now, once I had installed this into the GameCube, it was very easy, just slot it into that port, and then close it up. I needed to find a way to back up the games. Now, this came in the guise of Clean Rip, which I had to run via Swiss. Now, I already had the SD media launcher that I got last year, so I could do this very easily. I just had to download the doll, copy it onto the external memory card, and just pop it into the memory card slot. Now, the first thing I noticed once I had everything plugged in was when I was loading up Swiss, it defaults to the SD2SP2. Now, previously it was defaulting to the memory card that I had in the SD loader. But you know, I've got no quarrels with this, because if I'm going to be playing my backed up games off my GameCube, I'll want it to default to the SD2SP2. If I'm going to be playing backed up games, this is where I'm going to want to go. So I fired up Clean Rip and I started backing up a couple of my games. Now, when you're backing up games in this manner, each backup takes around about 25 minutes. But after putting a couple onto my larger memory card, I ran them, I gave them a go, and you know what? They were working pretty well. So after the success of those last two, I went ahead and I backed up all of the rest of my collection. I have about 20 titles, and a couple of those have got 2 discs in the case, so it took me a little over 8 hours to back up my games through this manner. So after all that time, I think I spent about 2 evenings just backing all of the games up at a casual pace. And after trying a couple of the other titles I'd backed up, I did start noticing issues. For one, Swiss wasn't reporting the card usage properly. It kept showing that only maybe a couple of meg was used, when in fact I knew fine well that about half of the card was used up. And with the select few games, I noticed that the full motion video was spotty. Either the audio was going out of sync with the video, or the video was just stuttering very heavily. At one point I was thinking, well, this is a small price to pay for such a cheap and easy way of backing up my games on an original GameCube. But after some research, I found that this had already been addressed in Swiss in a software update. So I went ahead and updated it. Now up until now I'd been using a version of Swiss that was dated from like March of 2020. That was when I got the SD media loader. I think it was revision 813 to my recollection. But since I'd been using it really just to run the Game Boy interface, I hadn't felt the need to update it. But of course now I'm using it for quite a bit more than that, so I definitely had to get the latest version. Now this included over a year's worth of updates. The Swiss community has been working tirelessly over the last year in order to add new features and to fix a whole manner of bugs. Now I'm happy to report that with this new version in place, the FMV is perfect, and well, basically overall performance of Swiss has been muchly improved. It's even reporting the used space on my SD card properly. Now while I was at it, and I know this isn't related to the SD2SP2, I updated the Game Boy interface as well, because there's been more than a year's worth of updates applied to that as well. And you know, I am impressed. On the base version of the Game Boy interface, there was a tiny little bit of input lag, but I've noticed now in this newer version that the input lag has been lowered since the update and the games are now much more responsive. So in short, now I've got a GameCube that has every one of my games backed up on it, displaying them stunningly sharp over HDMI, and nothing is hard modded. I can return it back to stock in seconds if I ever wanted to. Now I know there are other options to playing backed up games on a GameCube, but I like this approach because it's completely unintrusive. It's relatively simple to set up, and to top it off, it's cheap. So you could go for something like this, and if you decide it's not for you, well, you're hardly breaking the bank. On all of those accounts, I would say this is definitely worth checking out, especially considering all of the updates that have been introduced into Swiss in order to make this process a whole lot easier. So that's it all done. I've got all of my GameCube games backed up and I can play them back on an original GameCube. Now, to be honest, you look at that, can you tell that it's got this mod installed on it? Nah, didn't think so. So that's the, let me think, that's the PS1, PS2, Wii and the GameCube games all backed up in this manner. I've got all the games backed up on their respective consoles, so I don't need the discs out anymore. I can put them in storage. I don't need them readily available now anymore. Now, next what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be moving on to the original Xbox and onto the Wii U in good time. So if you want to see how those go, feel free to subscribe down below. Now, what about you? Have you been backing up your games for any of these platforms? I mean, if so, leave some advice in the comments and some tips in order to make it a little easier for everyone else. Well, I'm going to sign off now anyways, so thanks very much for watching. Please leave a like if you liked the video, and I'll catch you all next time.